This episode is produced by the Digitalization Pod and DXC. Cyberattacks are no longer slow, isolated events. They move fast, spread quickly, and exploit small weaknesses before anyone has time to react. Distinguished Technologist is one of the top technical distinctions at DXC, one of the world's leading IT services and security companies. Lars Klinghammer holds this recognition and works as a global IT security remediation and resilient leader, as well as security architect and consultant. In this episode, he joined us in person, traveling from Germany to share his experience from handling real cyber incidents. Together, we explore how attacks actually unfold inside organizations, what typically lead to compromise, what breaks in the first critical hours, and why recovery is often much harder than expected. Welcome, Lars.
Hi, welcome, Jens. Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you here. And you came all the way from Hamburg to Oslo.
Yeah, there was an early start. The boarding was at 5:45, so very early. But still, it's an exciting topic. So from that point of view, I'm delighted to be here and energized.
You're also attending to the cybersecurity forum.
Yeah, tomorrow.
With Computer World.
Yeah.
So then I will see you at the scene as well.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be there.
So who is Lars?
My name is Lars Klinghammer, living in Germany, in Hamburg, married, 3 children, and 30 years in IT security. I started in a university hospital as a laboratory assistant and took over the IT system, migrated the manual IT into automating and into IT. And if you work in medicine, you only can make career if you have a doctor title. So, which I didn't have, so I had to search for something else. And at these days, there was in the newspaper, there was an announcement that there are trainee opportunities at Microsoft. And so I started with Microsoft as a trainee, and then I worked 15 years in the cybersecurity global practice and have been global architect, traveling around the world, securing IT infrastructure. And then I migrated over to Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, which became DXC, where I'm now since 10 years. So that's basically who I am.
Yeah. But the cybersecurity for 30 years ago and now might be quite different.
Definitely. So
because that's 1996. We have just gotten some internet modems at that time.
It was still when I made beep, 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 beep. That was the time when I started with IT. Exactly. And when my first activities with the organization started with hardening IIS server and those kind of things, and there were barely information available at all. So these days, there are tons of information in the internet, so it's a completely different animal.
IIS server, that's the Microsoft's internet
information server. Yeah. That was the web server these days, and that's just an example. There were other infrastructure components that you had to secure. Nevertheless, the key point is there was no information available, and even Microsoft internally, it was not that easy to get this information, and there was required a close collaboration with the product team in Seattle. And the sexy thing with being with Microsoft is that we once in a year flew over to Seattle, having technical briefings and learning about the nitty-gritty details together with the product group. That was really amazing time, for sure.
Yeah, a lot have happened since then.
Definitely, and it still is a lot going on, especially these days with AI, etc. So that's I'm pretty sure we will touch this topic later in our session. It's definitely something that has a significant impact to the industry, and not only the industry, to everybody today.
Yeah.
Even my children that are still don't have their job yet, it will impact their decision regarding what kind of job they take, etc. For sure.
Yeah. Let's talk a little about DXC.
Sure.
Because you said you start in age and that turned into DXC,
Exactly.
and then it's a lot of other companies also. What I know is that it's 130,000 people working in DXC, and
Yep.
it's consulting.
Yeah, it's not just consulting. So DXC is a global leading IT services, IT security services provider. So there was a description that was very impressive for me is when I participated recently, I think it was, I don't know, half a year ago, in a conference, in DXC internal conference, and there was a statement that DXC basically runs almost any large global company or parts of any global company, may it be airlines, may it be banks, may it be insurances, may it be car manufacturers, may it be, you name it, everywhere DXC is involved in maintaining infrastructure, operating infrastructure, providing services, providing consulting services, providing security services, providing SOC and other managed. So we are almost everywhere, and with a pool of 40,000 technical people across all over the place, with SOCs in all major regions in a sense of follow the sun, we are a pretty global player. And for me, it's an unbelievable privilege and pleasure, let's say, to work in a global role where I have the opportunity to work with all sorts of different cultures in different regions, and even more important, in different industries that have different challenges. You see you get so many insights in the various industries and learn what runs good, what runs not so good, what kind of industry do you like, which one you not so much prefer. So it gives a lot of insight. It's broadened the horizon, and it's an absolute, for me, a dream job. So I'm pretty happy to be there.
You said a word that you probably are going to say a lot of times more, which is SOC.
Yeah.
And
Security Operations Center.
Yeah, exactly. But what is a SOC? We are going to talk more about SOC later, so then it's good to cover.
Basically, if you maintain a security infrastructure or an infrastructure in your organization, you need to understand what's going on in the infrastructure. How do the CPUs work? How much load do they have? What kind of network communications you have? What kind of connection attempts you have? Who access what kind of accounts using what kind of entities? And you have your sensors and your agents throughout your infrastructure. And you can imagine all the different tools: firewalls, routers, gateways, servers, clients, all having log files that build a pool of data. And the goal of the organization is to maintain the infrastructure as secure as possible. As you can imagine, you need to have a lot of experience, knowledge, and understanding what is accepted and expected behavior or patterns, and what is not expected and not accepted. So some organizations do in-house with their own people, with their own SOC, Security Operations Center, with their own capabilities. Others say, it's not our core competency, we don't want to spend the effort and to train the people, maintain the infrastructure, etc. So they reach out to professional service providers. Can you provide this service for us, so that the organization, the SOC, monitors what's going on in the infrastructure?
So the SOC is both people and servers that is monitoring?
Services, I would say, not necessarily. So you basically have a pool of information that gets analyzed and interpreted, and based on what you see, you have to react somehow.
But then you have a line into your customers'
Sure.
local area network.
Sure, you need to know and see what's going on in their infrastructure.
And also into their cloud, if they have cloud.
Whatever is part of your infrastructure. And and then you can maintain their security in best case.
Yeah.
And
see trends and understand.
And the main task is to keep the organization, in best case, out of the newspaper and being able to support them in detect suspicious activities and events and helping them to analyze what's going on there. Is it false positive or not relevant, or is this something that you need to follow up on? And then based on that, you have to do some specific tasks, playbooks, etc., to contain and remediate the activities.
We will come back with
For
more
sure.
SOC later. So what is the typical issues that lead to be compromised?
I think there are not. I mean, this is not rocket science. So IT security.
For most people, it is.
I don't think so. I mean, the principles are. You can break it down in different, let's say, layers. And it depends in-depth model. There are different layers that you need to secure and where you have weaknesses. And pretty simple example that should be pretty obvious is in all infrastructures you have something like administrators, which are the most mightiest accounts within the environment that are their whole reason for existence is to
super users and root.
Super users and root to configure how users can access what, which kind of resources are protected in what way, etc. So as they are very mighty accounts, you don't want to have many of them, and they should be highly monitored. So the challenge is, and what we often see is that organizations have way too many high-privileged accounts, for example. They have not just high-privileged accounts for doing people management, etc., and doing resource management, whatever they want to do, but also used with this high privilege as service accounts. That means every service that runs under the context of this privileged account present or increase the attack surface for the organization. That means if you have, 10 services all running with domain admin or high privileged accounts, that leaves more opportunities for a threat actor to find an entry door into your environment. Another thing is, if you look for an infrastructure point of view these days, 5 years ago, you had a really more or less, or maybe 10 years ago, you had an isolated environment. An often used example is a castle where you had your walls as the border, your firewalls, the wall of the castle that is restricting the access between outside of the environment. The outside was the dangerous dark web, compromised web that is not trustworthy. And the philosophy was everything that is internal is secure. And that has dramatically changed. So you need to assume breach. You need to trust nothing. So zero trust is an often used buzzword these days. That means you always have to verify. You have to verify the account. You have to verify the network. You have to verify the privileges. You have to verify to ensure that the person or the entity that want to access your resources is really the entity and is authorized to do so. And
because just so I can explain it so I understand myself. Because earlier, for 10 or 20 years ago, you had a LAN, local area network, and if you were at the LAN, which were physical cables very often,
secure,
then you were secure. Everything could be open.
Exactly.
Because if
assumed
you wanted
or assumed can be open, does not necessarily mean yes, but that was the assumption.
And if you wanted to get in there, you had to be physical there, or you had to access a firewall with a VPN to get in there. And as long as you were inside, you had was easy to get access to things. But with zero trust, I heard it like an onion, that you have many leaves around, and it should be safe. Each leaf should be safe in So then you don't, and that goes. Then you trust nobody, even though you are in the LAN, local area network.
Exactly. You should assume breach. That means you should not trust and verify every single activity within your and entity and layer within your environment. So that's basically the overall principle, let's say. And that is one of the dramatic changes. And with technologies like something in the past with cloud, and in coincidence with COVID and the whole we need to work from home kind of situation, you got more and more disappearing enterprise boundaries and more incoming connections from all over the place, from devices in worst case that you don't know or not manage, how you want to handle, how you want to understand, are those secure, are those legit to access resources, etc. So that presented and still present a significant risk, and you need to handle somehow. For example, with the SOC, what's going on? Are they legit? Are they allowed to access when? And in case it's a strange pattern, then let's further analyze this.
But when you're thinking about zero trust, and you also have this identity and access, just like Entra from everyone is using Azure Entra or Microsoft Entra these days, ID, then you kind of have gotten all in single sign-on ID. Then you already have gotten a lot of power or privileges. How does that compare when you compare it with zero trust? Because then you have gotten all the access you need.
I mean, in order to get an account, you need to authenticate yourself. You need to authorize the entity, and this is the overall process need to cover how is somebody eligible, how does he or she get the credentials, and how are they applied, and where can they access, and that is
multi-factor.
And what kind of authorization and authentication. So there is the requirement for defining these policies, etc. So that means zero trust to verify all these things, to these dependencies, and make sure that it's trustworthy. And if it's not, and trust is not a fixed thing. So trust can change from maybe just for one transaction or for an hour or whatever. So depending on your risk appetite and depending on your policies and depending on the requirements, this trust needs to be removed. So what that is a point that very often happened, at least in the past, is that there is no credential hygiene, in the sense of you get more and more high privileged accounts, people or identities leaving the organization, working for a different company, and still having, in worst case, the credentials living in their environment. So you need to have a different process, joiner, leaver, mover kind of process called, where you need to monitor who is in your environment and to ensure that you adjust your policies, infrastructure, and configurations, authentication and authorization, depending on the change of the environment.
But who is having access also lead us into third-part risk, doesn't it?
Sure.
Because that's also a
supply chain. So
typical issue.
Supply chain attacks have been in the news, I don't know, the last 2 years, 3 years or something like that. So they have been since a while in the news, and of course they are in a typical attack scenario where a threat actor not directly attacks maybe a highly protected bank or something like that has strict security policies, zero trust, and everything secured. But there is a third party vendor to this bank that is a smaller organization with not that much budget, with less security. So it's easier to compromise this third party.
And that's very often a supplier to
the target organization, which can be analyzed through the internet and reconnaissance activities, where you get an understanding as a threat actor. What are the dependencies? How does the ecosystem from my victim organization look like? And then attack this third party, and then from this third party attacking the target organization. And that happened also several times in the past. I forgot the name of the specific solar storm or solar wind or something. That is an example for these kind of attacks. So
that was a software, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For routers or routers
something.
Monitoring routers.
I forgot the exact details, but that was an example for these kind of attacks. And yes, this is something that you need to take care of and also take care of. As I said, there is in defense in depth where you have physical server, client, software, policies, people, technology, so the different layers you need to make secure. And in case one layer breaks, you need to have compensating controls on the other layers. Plus the zero trust things, etc.
And even though you have all these security aspects that you should take care of, it happens that people break in or are doing cyber criminality to you and break your system. And then we have something called containment when this happens. And that's your response when you are being hacked. What's happening when you getting hacked, and what should you do?
What always is to be said for a compromised organization, that is a really, there are different stages of compromise, let's say. And let's say at the I don't know, when I started in this business, a compromise mainly was, and that was dramatic enough, let's say, that credential theft happened means that a threat actor that should not have access to the environment got these before mentioned high privileged account, domain admin, and was able to move around, called lateral movement, within the environment and compromise different systems in the environment and steal data being in the environment. The point is, or has been in the past, that you still were able to do your business. You have been compromised, you lose your information, maybe, whatever the threat actor is doing there, but you were able to do your business. Then it started to become more common that it was sort of a destructive attack, where when ransomware started, ransomware is a sort of malware that starts to encrypt or render unusable computer systems, software, whatever that is susceptible to these sort of attacks. And then the threat actor says, usually you get a pop-up on your PC that says all your files are encrypted, pay X amount of Bitcoin, and you get access again.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know, some years ago. What now happens is, now since that's already since 2 years, is that the threat actors steal information, then encrypt or destroy the information, and then put in double pressure, not only saying, please pay us X amount of whatever, Bitcoin, dollar, or whatever is the currency, but if the organization says, no, we will not pay, then they say, okay, because they stole the information up front, they say, we start in, I don't know, next 5 days after your thinking time, we start to publish confidential information, make it accessible to the public, let's say. So it's a twofold kind of pressure. It's not only your data is gone and your systems are wrecked, but also we make them accessible to third parties that should, maybe your competition, or to the public in the news, you lose your reputation, etc. So it's a significant threat to the organization. So that means you need to somehow be prepared for these kind of situations. And the official recommendation to that is to not to pay the ransom. In some areas, it's even criminal act because you support theoretical terrorism, etc. So the recommendation should be not to pay. And there has been a study, I can't remember who did this study, but the study was that those organizations that pay ransom are more likely to get successfully re-attacked again.
It's good customers.
Exactly, good customer. And then those that didn't pay and rebuild the infrastructure from their own capabilities, let's say.
Yeah.
So, but your question was, what is to be done? So you need to have obviously a plan, and there are many things, many tasks that need to be prepared upfront before a crisis happens, before you are successfully get compromised, to be as good as possible prepared. And it starts with governance and having an understanding of rules and responsibilities, who is involved, who is leading and orchestrating the different activities. And there are two main points from my experience that are really essential. There are many important things, but they are stood out from my point of view. Is knowing what is most valuable to your business, which customers, which solutions, which services, and what needs to be prioritized first, second, third. So this prioritization part, that is really crucial, that you know what needs to be secured first, what needs to be recovered first, etc. And something that's also crucial is to understand what do you have in your infrastructure. So you need to know your internet outbreaks. You need to know your services. You need to know where do my different entities live, and in best case also the dependencies. So what goes in, what goes out, who is responsible for what? There are so many dependencies, as you can imagine, and also depending on the size of the organization. If you have a global organization, there's a lot of information that you need, and this is not something that you usually can fix in a week or something like that. There are so many dependencies, and it consumes time, and you need to do it in a structured program to understand where I am currently from my maturity level, and then where do I want to be from my maturity level, and then figure out what is the delta, what kind of activities improve my maturity and help me to secure the environment. And if you know where do I have my internet outbreaks, where do I have my crucial systems, where can people go in and out, there you have the start point for the containment, in a sense of what can I maybe disable, what can I restrict from the access point of view, so that you reduce the capability of the threat actor to move around within your environment. And then also a crucial part is having visibility. So an organization should have as much as possible detection and EDR, event detection and response capabilities in their environment. So then when they see something suspicious, then they somehow can block these kind of activities so that the threat actor cannot easily move around, and in best case that this movement is detected and then countermeasures can be put in place.
But you say should, and you're telling about like the best practice, how things should have been. But let's say that you were attacked with ransomware and the attackers have already started encrypting your system. What should you do as soon as you understand that you are under attack and that maybe you already have gotten the note telling we have encrypted your data? What should you do the first 24 hours?
Of course, you need to, as fast as possible, contain means restrict the ability of the threat actor and the malware to further spread within your environment. Is
that to drag out the network plug, or is it turn off the power?
Something where our we have specialized forensic teams, and what they say is, what they typically don't like is that you shut it down, because then volatile data in the memory of the systems is lost. So for their analysis, it's better to just plug the cable, not the power cable, the network cable, so that they can, at least for some systems, can do their analysis and have a better understanding of the tactics, tools, and procedures of the threat actor and the malware that is used, and maybe can do some attribution regarding what kind of threat actor is going on there.
Yeah.
So you want to isolate, and for that, a sufficient understanding of your environment is important, so that you know, okay, we have our systems in, typically you do not have from 1 minute to the other, all tens of thousands of servers are gone. That is usually not happen.
No.
So it takes some time, and depending on how the network is structured, it's more complicated for the malware to spread. So in best case, and if you're lucky, and if you have
and that's zero trust again?
Say it again?
Is that zero trust?
Or
again?
Zero trust will
also goes for how we build the network so that it's not
exactly micro-segmentation. So you have a lot of network bridges, let's say, where you have to cross into other networks. So that has a positive impact in the ability of the positive in the sense of is blocking the malware to spread further in the environment. So as more as it's segmented and as more you have specific requirements to access environments, it's more difficult for the malware. So long story short is you want to isolate wherever you can and as much as you can. The difficulty is there is competitive desires on the business side regarding I want to contain and rebuild as fast as possible. And on the other side, you have the forensic teams that need to analyze what's going on, what sort of threat actor, what sort of malware, how do the indicators of compromise look like, in which files, in which directories, with what sort of approaches, and so that you can be very sure as possible. How did this threat actor get into the environment? Maybe what was patient zero? The patient zero is the first system that has been touched by the threat actor, and can close all the doors. Something that obviously threat actors try to do is having a backdoor, and you want to make sure that you, in best case, have found all the backdoors, so that if the threat actor has been kicked out or is not able to access the environment anymore, that if the threat actor comes back maybe half a year later, that all backdoors are closed and they are not can getting back into what has been a backdoor for them. So that is a competing kind of situation, and you need to find the right, and that is the art of the forensic engineers, that they find the right moment in time where they say, okay, we assume we can't go further back into the past. We think we found all entry doors, all malicious entities in the environment. We know which accounts, we know which directories, and then you need to define what does good look like. You have, and of course, when you find something, you find a specific domain, you find a specific command and control channel, a communication channel from the threat actor into the environment to say that triggers malicious activity. There comes also the AI and automation part. So more and more threat actors try to automate this with AI, etc., to adapt to the scenarios that they found in the environment. But you want to block this as much as possible to contain it. And then you need to start based on prioritization, based on the findings, in collaboration with the forensic teams, to define. You can't just rebuild the infrastructure into a potentially compromised environment. So if you have a nice new shiny machine, bring it up into the environment, you still have maybe malware running around.
Yeah. So you have to stop it before you start it up again?
Otherwise, you get recompromised again immediately. So you need to know, I need to block these directories. I need to reset these accounts. I need to have this customized antivirus pattern file. I have to, whatever the different countermeasures are in order to block the malicious activity before, and I have to run a successful scan that everything is applied, and only then you can connect to the potentially compromised environment.
I heard an example from a colleague of you, and he told Torbjørn.
Who?
Torbjørn, he is in Remmen, he's in DXC Norway, and he told about that in one case that he had worked with, the malware or the virus was producing a special file. Each time it started, it was a README file on a certain size. So when they had identified that file, they knew exactly how it looks like, and then they could start looking for it.
Exactly.
And then make a service that was closing down the service that made this file.
Yep.
And in that way, you kind of made like a virus application that tried all the time to stop it before it started with the encryption.
Exactly. So you have a set of, depending on what the specific situation look like.
But you're quite clever if you are able to make like an antivirus application like that in a few minutes, so that you can start.
Yeah, this is in. I haven't seen that this happens in minutes. These antivirus files.
No.
So that takes some time. So usually you find a pattern within the environment of the malicious software. This is shared with the antivirus provider, and they create a custom specific for this organization, a custom pattern file that is confidentially shared with the antivirus producer, and then this is created and used within the environment. So I would be surprised if this is something that is done in minutes. It's not what my experience is on that topic.
Okay, maybe it's just what I thought. I don't know. I haven't been there, so I haven't.
Maybe it's possible today, but as I said, I haven't seen it that it's so that fast. But that is something.
Another question is: how long will a cyber attack like ransomware go on? Is it something like gone in a few seconds and then it happens, or is it going over several days or weeks? Or
what exactly do you mean? The compromise until the servers or systems are impacted, or do you mean from detecting, containing, responding, and rebuilding? So that's
as the first virus is starting working with encrypting your systems, then it's start with one server and then it goes to the next and the next and the next.
Yeah.
So how long does it take before this are spread to?
Yeah, so the spread goes pretty fast, and as I said, it depends also on how your infrastructure look like. If you have a flat network, everything the same IP addresses, with a bad zero trust implementation, with no verification of access, etc., then you can be pretty fast, pretty broad distributed. Typically, organizations have network segments, so they are somehow structured. So it really depends on typical consulting answer, depends on the actual situation, on the environment. But you can have quite some systems compromised in a very short timeline. I wouldn't necessarily say seconds, but if you a half day, you can have several thousand servers compromised if the conditions are that way. As I said, flat network, bad administrative practices, etc. And that is, as with everything, if you do some security, some minor security here, some minor security there, some minor security everywhere, with every little step that you add, it gets more difficult and tricky for the malware to be spread, and you get a little bit more security. And as such, you need to prioritize, obviously. This is again the risk management aspect and also the regulatory aspects, depending on the industry. You need to try to get this addressed as much as possible.
If you get attacked and your data is encrypted, and the question, you already said it, I think, but should you pay? Because that's an easy way out.
Yeah, that is what I said. I mean,
unless it's
the
illegal.
official recommend. Whenever you ask consultants, organizations that support customers in such situations, the statement is, the recommendation is not to pay. On the other side, there have been organizations, they have no access to the backups, they have no access to anything. What else would you do? Then, I mean, the official recommendation, and as I said, it's something in some regions it's not allowed to pay, but there are organizations, and there will be organizations that pay. If nobody would pay, there would be no ransomware industry. And ransomware is a very high, at the let's say publicity level, there are many ransomware attacks. So obviously, there are entities that pay. So the problem is, even if you pay, as I said earlier, there have been studies that those organizations that paid, they get more often compromised.
Again, yeah.
You need to have in mind, you somehow collaborating, in brackets, collaborating with a criminal organization. It's theoretical or even practical terrorist support. And on the other side, I mean, even if you pay and you get, in worst case, no key at all, then you paid a lot of money and still have no data recovered. On the other side, if you get
but then you lose trust in the hacker company. So
that may be not the best business case for the criminal organization, but who knows? I mean, as I said, it's a criminal organization. On the other side, even if you get a key, you can't be sure that you can recover everything, maybe only parts. You can't be 100% sure that it really works everywhere. And the point is, even if you get the key, you need to think about how do you handle, how you distribute the keys, how do your process look like for using the key materials that you got from the customer, and how do you want to handle in the future. I mean, you always have been you recovered your data into a state where you have been successfully compromised. So where do you want to start to further secure? Where do you want to say, this is trustworthy information, this is not trustworthy information? So there are so many difficult... But it's the same
if you have a backup and you restore the backup, the restore that you're doing, it's also vulnerable at the same
For sure. There are newer solutions, vault solutions, where you have air gaps, where you have solutions that have sort of an entropy approach, where they analyze the data streams, and if there is
before restore?
Before the restore. And not the restore, before the backup.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and if there is a suspicious pattern, a suspicious entropy in the file, in the nature of the files, then they will block the backup. So, and then it needs to be verified: is this clean data? Is there something real? Is it a real suspicious kind of thing? So, many organizations have a second recovery data center, and then end up in worst case with 2 encrypted data centers, because in their business continuity plans, not always intentional destructive attacks have been recognized or considered during the planning. And something that I wanted to mention is with the recovery of key material from the threat actor, there are also use cases, especially in the political and, again, the cyber war thing. There have been cases where the ransomware was built without the ability, there was no recovery key. So even if you wanted to pay, you can't pay, because there is no recovery key, because it was intentional destructive. The goal was to destroy the systems. So in this case, you need to rebuild your systems anyway. So,
and the best case there is restore a backup.
obviously, having offline backups, having it sufficiently secured.
But then I have questions about the backup, because when I was hands-on for many years ago, we had backup drives, like tapes that you can put in, and but that was also in the age when you had your own servers. Most companies don't have their own servers anymore. Now everything is in the cloud, in the hyperscaler. So we're buying the services from AWS or from Microsoft or from Google or
whomever.
Yeah, whoever. And do you have backup in the same way?
How these organizations build their backups, I don't know. But obviously, this is something that you need to discuss. You need to articulate what your expectations are, what your requirements are. Maybe there are legal and regulatory requirements for how long to restore what sort of data, etc. So before you commit to a service provider, before you commit to a specific service related to backup, obviously you need to articulate what are your requirements. You need to have your company policy and your business case articulated, and based on that, you need to make, as with everything that you buy somewhere, if you buy a house or if you buy a car, you have some requirements that are important for you. You need to have that sort of wheels, that sort of engine, that sort of windows or roof or whatever. And some vendors can provide what you look for. Some vendors have some other priorities, and you need to figure out what fits best your requirements.
Yeah.
But you need to think about these things upfront and can't just ignore them, because sooner or later there's a good likelihood that this will hit your environment, and then you don't want to be in a stress situation and doing these longer lasting decisions and plannings. That's not a smart idea from my point of view.
When it comes to a stressed situation, you have also looked into the psychic part of how you're feeling, or how much energy, or what we did is what's happening during this attack or after the attack.
Exactly. So what we did is, there was from an Swiss-American or American-Swiss, I can't remember, Elizabeth Kübler-Ross was her name. She was psychologist, and she did a study called The Phases of Grief, when families lost a family member or something. Yeah. They had different ways and different phases during the overall timeline of when it immediately happened, how they handle this sort of crisis situation.
Before and after funeral. And
exactly. So different, you go through different emotional stages. And as I wrote several papers on the whole ransomware topic, what to do before, what to do during, what to do after, I thought what would be different. No, actually it was different. When I have been involved in these crisis situations, they were, and I'm pretty convinced, for everybody involved in large crisis situation, incident response in a crisis situation will be definitely one of the most demanding IT situations that you can be in. The stress level is unbelievably high. And there are several reasons why it's unbelievably high. And in every single post-mortem, after we recovered the organization, you have a session with all the participants to figure out what went well, what went not so well, where can you improve. That is called post-mortem, this sort of exercise. And one aspect that always came up and that I experienced myself is, especially in the first 2 to 3 days, depending on what's going on, that you're working more or less, and the Workers' Council hopefully doesn't hear that, you work more or less 24/7 for several days. So you are pretty fast, pretty exhausted. And the feedback during these postmortems from many customers, colleagues, and participants was, it's unbelievably stressful and emotionally demanding. Yeah. And that led to the situation that we took this Elizabeth Kübler-Ross curve for phases or stages of grief and adopted that not of the grief in a sense of lost a person from the family, but lost our infrastructure or being in an IT crisis. So we came up with 5 phases: denial, panic, frustration,
Uncertainty,
and
because you don't know if you're going to save the situation, probably.
the uncertainty is not the. I have to search.
What about anger from other in the company?
Anger, etc., and
saying you
and
have
then
to
back
get
to
it back.
normal.
Yeah.
So and it follows, or with these different stages, you have different energies in the overall team, and what you need. What from the, let's say, governance and overarching management of the incident point of view, you want to go through the first phases: denial, anger, etc. The less constructive phases, go as fast as possible through these, let's say, less constructive phases, and enter into a collaborative, positive energy kind of way of working, because you are already in stress enough due to the technical situation. Don't want to have intercommunication, inter-team relation kind of negative energy. So you need to get through this as fast as possible. And knowing or thinking about these different emotional stress factors helps significantly to try to positively influence these emotions, these phases, get through it, and to drive into the right direction so that you can handle and manage the situation as fast and efficient as possible. So it's a different way to look at this. And we have been with customers that took this very seriously, not based on this paper, let's say, but by their own thoughts come to the idea that this would be a smart idea. Also, what I said on that topic at the beginning with very intense 24/7 for several days, something that often happens in such crisis situation is that there are it has been always in these crisis situation where I have been involved, there are 2-3 people that are very long with the victim organization, that know the in and outs from who are the contacts, how the different solutions work together. And those people, and they are also technically very smart and can address not only one specific topic, they are cross-domain kind of capable worker. And they get spammed with all sort of questions. The colleagues ask, can you help me here? They have to do their own work. The management is pinging them, hey, did you, because they are effective, they know what they do, they can support, they can delegate, etc. But the problem is, these are restricted, scarce resources, and they work so much, so intense, and in parallel get blocked with nasty questions if it's not orchestrated and structured and orchestrated in the right way, that especially those people after 2 days, maximum 3 days, are dead and can't work anymore.
No.
And that is something that you, in best case, proactively try to get addressed by building and educating equal skills as good as possible so that you can work in day shifts and in night shifts, in best case in similar efficiency, and can also orchestrate how the handover of the shift, like in a hospital where you have night shift and day shifts, where you also make a handover, that you enable such situation. But it's difficult and expensive, and it's easier said than done, for sure.
But in hospitals, this events happens all the time, so they have gotten routines for it, which you don't have in a cyber attack, because it's.
But the principles are similar.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, and
very good comparison.
And that is also a learning and pretty obvious just by the wordings. Medicine is so good analogy to all cybersecurity related things, with viruses, with worms, with contamination, containment. You can apply all of these in medicine as well as in IT security. So there are many analogies on these topics, for sure.
You have also, or we talked about it when in the introduction, that we are going from human speed to machine speed.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked a little about it already, how fast is a virus spreading, depends on zero trust and things like that. But the machine speed, we are talking about AI, aren't we?
Exactly.
Mm.
And there's another analogy that I like a lot.
Mm.
I don't know if it's technically accurate, but it resonates with me, let's say. I read somewhere, I can't remember where, that 100 years ago we had the Industrial Revolution, where people that worked in a factory initially manually, then had a production line where they had, I don't want to say robots, but machines that helped them doing difficult work, and they became more and more effective and were able to produce even more whatever they produce. So Industrial Revolution.
Mm.
And for me, and I hope that's not stupid, but for me, with this AI topic, with the amount of influence, with the amount of impact for those that work in the, and even for those that not work in cybersecurity or in the IT industry, for everybody, AI has already influenced what they work, how information is consumed. All these discussions that we these days, I mean, 2 days ago, we in Germany started an intense discussion around deep fakes and people publishing inappropriate movies with changed faces, etc., where you can't differentiate, is it real, is it AI, is it fake? So it's, and that is by far not an IT topic, that is more people and social kind of impact, but it's an impact. So there is I think, as we had in 100 years ago, Industrial Revolution, we now have the AI revolution, and it will, and it has already significantly impacted how organizations get impacted by AI capabilities. And what the most significant difference with AI is that the attacks, and first of all, that the attacks become more frequent and significantly more complex, so more difficult to handle just from numbers point of view as well as from complexity. Plus, that is from the defender side. On the other side, from the attacker side, I also, as an attacker, have much more tools, advanced tools, AI tools that help me in a way, like I can create with Claude and all these AI tools where I can develop, say, please develop an application with these and that functionalities. There are dedicated models and tools that help threat actors to create malicious applications. That and what our forensic teams start to see since 9 months, 6 months, something like that, that what we haven't seen yet, based on the feedback that I got from the forensic engineers, is what we haven't seen yet in customer environments, etc., that an end-to-end AI-supported, AI-driven, automated attack from across the whole attack kill chain, that everywhere where AI. But what we start to see is some areas where privilege elevation is done automatically. Some other areas where the malware is adapting against, based on its own analysis and based on what it finds as an environment in the victim organization, that it adapts their compromise capabilities, let's say. And this very likely will become more and more, that the malware becomes more, and the threat actors, and the end-to-end process from reconnaissance, malware creation, compromise, proliferation in the environment, exfiltration of data, masquerading within the environment, finding backdoors, putting stress on the customer, that there comes more and more automation, more and more capabilities as the industry further evolves, and it's in the nature, as I said, the creativity part at the beginning, as they are very good in being at the front of the leading edge technologies, these threat actors. The organizations need to be on the same level with them in order to, in the same way like threat actors evolve in trying to compromise the environment, the defenders need to evolve in finding tools, developing tools to fight on the other side. So it has been always, so there's a good likelihood it will be also in the future. It always has been an up and down between defender and attackers, and let's hope that it remains the same, that there is sort of balance in between, at least over the longer time.
I'm using Claude Code a lot myself, so I think that it wouldn't be hard to get Claude to help me find weak place spaces in the application or weak spots in the network, because it's very powerful, it's in terminal, so it can send any commands it wants, and it's very helpful. Just like all LLMs, they are like very positive and want to try to fix everything that you ask for. So I see that it would be probably a great tool for a hacker. But as you say, you can use the same tool the other way around.
But this is not will, it is. So it's present tense, not future. So this happens already. That is what I said. We see already, from our forensic engineers see already that there are some parts that do the elevation, some parts that do the data exfiltration, some parts that do the malware or code creation, some parts do the vulnerability assessment to figure out entry doors, etc. So that is what's going on at the moment. And on the same at the same time, as we have the attackers on one side of the medal, a colleague of mine gave me a perfect example that again resonates with me. It's a similar thing like two sides of the medal, but what he said is, if you pick up a stick which has two ends, if you pick up one end of the stick, you automatically pick up the other end of the stick. And the other end of the stick is, in the same way like threat actors elevate their capabilities, obviously the defender side of the house also further elevate their capabilities, further develop creative kind of countermeasures against what comes from the bad side, let's say. Example is the agentic SOC, to come back to the Security Operations Center, where DXC, as I think also our senior leadership understands that this is a dramatic shift in how the industry works. They decided, that DXC should become an AI-first, automation-first sort of company. And to support this philosophy and this strategy change is that they started within our own internal, means DXC, internal more than 1 million assets environment to implement together with 7AI an agentic SOC where DXC started to migrate the level 1 SOC analysts that do the analysis in former times manually, collecting the information, making the plausibility checks and the verification. This is all with reasoning models based on agentic AI now, and 99%, as far as I know, have been replaced. The level 1 SOC analysts, level 1 SOC analysts now have way more time to do higher strategic work and got trained in new technologies, etc. So much more important information.
So then you set up an agent or many agent to monitoring patterns in your customers'
Exactly.
networks and services.
Not
And
custom. It's our own infrastructure.
Ah,
So
you don't give this to your customers yet?
Yeah, that is the trend that we see, and that is the only way, from our point of view. How that is the point. If your attackers are on machine speed, you can't react in human speed. You need to cope with the speed and also need to be able to respond in machine speed, and that is and will be the trend for the future. That you get agentic SOCs. Otherwise, you can't handle the complexity and the amount of threats and attacks that you will see in the next time. So,
but can you chat, or can you do chatting with agentic SOC? I mean, can you prompt and ask for?
You have your agent.
I want a report about this and this and this.
Of course,
and then you.
I mean, I'm not a SOC analyst, so I can't say how exactly they work on a day-to-day basis. But what the point is that the mean time to respond have been reduced by 70%. That the accuracy and the consistency, an agent works 24/7 in the same consistency in the detection of what's suspicious, what is standard, etc. So all metric around mean time to respond, mean time to analyze, etc. All these and acknowledge all these different parameters are dramatically decreased, and the efficiency significantly increased. So that is in the aim, again, to get the balance right. If the threat actor goes up, then also the defenders need to improve, and that is what's going on at the moment, and that will be in every single area. And something that will also happen for sure is that it's not just the agentic SOC; it will also everything will have an agentic in front of it. On the whole, that's my Lars Klinghammer opinion. In the whole end-to-end IT life cycle, wherever you have something where you need to invent something, where you need to improve something, where you need to verify, everywhere you can put in AI or automate it in front of this, and that is something that will come. And where the need is higher, or where something need to be prioritized, there you will have it faster. So example is when we have now level 1 SOC analysts, all agentic, non-human. Nevertheless, we have the quality assurance where we have humans trained on verifying true positives, etc., to make sure that it's really positives. So always a human in the loop kind of exercise. But what also will happen very likely is all the red team activities where you have at the moment people working manually on the aspect of figuring out in a friendly attack where you want to figure out where do we have weaknesses in our infrastructure, that these things will also get automation,
penetration tests, and they can be done by cloud code or
exactly. So and aligned with Maitre attack framework and using all sort of technologies in a way faster way than normal, let's say, human people could do. So this will come for sure.
Yeah, I also, as a technical person, you get also a lot of help from those agents, and you get the answers that you are seeking so much faster, as you said, and that's makes
not
it much
only answers, but I think answer something that is important: action.
Yeah.
So they can, I don't know, shut down a port. They can shoot an email to wherever it's required. So it's the actionable part, I think, is the important thing. So that at the moment where you send an answer, in an answer sense, means writing a text that has potential for delay, and something that you want to get addressed is machine speed, and there you need to act immediately. And these act immediately, that is the gain in benefit, let's say.
But in a parallel to doing development with the AI, very often you are starting in a planning phase. So you are talking with AI about the feature you are going to do or the bug fix you are going to do, and you're telling about the problem, and then you get a lot of feedback that you haven't thought about yourself. And I guess you can do the same in cybersecurity. You can talk about, I have this kind of service, I have this network. What should I focus on to make it more safe? And you give AI a role, or a different role, one with QA, one with security expert, one penetration, and they can work together. And
I mean, that's the creative part, and where, I mean, this is, how long is AI out there? A year? I mean, of course, they do research and development on that topic for maybe decades.
Yeah.
But where it really got traction, is it
ChatGPT for 3 years ago?
So it's not that long.
No.
So we are at the very beginning, obviously, and it will have a dramatic impact for sure. And who knows where this is going? So that's kind of starts to become philosophic kind of question, let's say. But back to the incidents response, etc. So in the same way, like for the, let's say, earlier phases, the SOC analyst and getting an understanding of patterns and detection, in the same way, I guess you also need to get into automated self-adjusting playbooks that, based on what the organization, what the systems, what the agents see in the environment, the playbooks get adopted somehow. I don't know how this looks like yet. I haven't been in a customer where customers had, or where we developed agentic supported playbooks or something like that. But what always happens when we are involved in crisis situations, that based on our experience, we of course have playbooks for, as you can imagine, there are so many resources impacted in a large crisis: server, client, databases, web servers, firewalls, Active Directory, Entra, you name it. There are so many components in the environment, and every infrastructure component requires a specific remediation exercise. So we went through this several times. We created those playbooks. We know in general how to secure these different entities, and per customer scenario, you add stuff, you remove stuff, you adjust things, but you have an accelerator in being faster in creating those things. And I'm pretty convinced sooner or later this will be enriched, augmented with automation, with AI, so that if, I don't know, some agent goes through the environment, the victim environment, you insert them somewhere where you say, we have this systems and these dependencies, and then you get a playbook how to recover. This will happen. I'm 100% convinced. And that is the only way how you can handle these, because you need to have the speed, because, as I said, and as the industry said, the frequency and the complexity of the attacks increase dramatically with the whole AI. So you need, in order to cope with this, have AI speed.
I'm thinking, when we have talked for over 1 hour now, and we have talked about a lot of technical aspects of cybersecurity. And then I'm thinking, for a small, medium business in Norway, we have like a lot of small, medium businesses.
Same in Germany.
Yeah. It's thousands and thousands and thousands. But they don't have all the knowledge that you have, or even that I have, about cybersecurity, I guess, because they are small. They have multi-topic people working there. They have to take care of the e-business, the office, the licenses,
no dedicated resources,
the lock systems, everything, databases, and that's only the tech part. How should they kind of handle all this cybersecurity, which is a big profession, you know?
Yeah. You need to start somewhere. And what's always, I think that one of the most famous fruits are low-hanging fruits. So start somewhere, and this is definitely not rocket science, and you don't hear this the first time, but prioritization is key. So, and prioritization is key, and risk management. So you as a manager of such an organization need to articulate what is your risk appetite and which let's say aspects feed into this risk appetite, and then you need to see that you start somewhere, reducing the number of privileged accounts, making more complex passwords. So there are many
multi-factor.
This multi-factor authentication.
Goes without saying.
There are zero trust. Blah blah blah. So there are many different strategies to improve the security, and the important part is to start. And with every single edition, you get slightly more secure. You get more maturity for your organization, and that is also something that always is mentioned in this sort of discussion, is the cultural aspect. So that you, if employees, colleagues see shortcomings in some processes or something like that this is appreciated and valued, that those concerns are raised and articulated towards them, and not handled in a somewhat bad way, so that employees are not interested in these topics anymore.
Yeah, so you have to build a security culture in the company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you need to have something like that, and make it a topic of everybody, not just the security folks or something like that. And often there is a difficulty between and some sort of tension between normal project teams and security. You always hear security is always say no and block, etc. So and that is what I mean with culture. So that they are involved from the beginning, and that the whole organization understands the need for why we need to secure the infrastructure, etc.
Your colleague Mike Baker, he said that as a CISO, you have to be an enabler, not a person that stops things, and especially in the ages we are living in now, because things is going so fast. Everyone is going to use AI, and if you are not using AI in the right way, they are kind of old-fashioned. And
that is exactly the way why we introduce the framework Exponential within DXC, that has a more orchestrated, structured approach to how to implement AI, how to implement new technologies, how to implement new solutions. And our CEO, Raul Fernandez, announced, I think it was last week or the week before, announced LabX, which is a new infrastructure within DXC that enables DXC to develop new solutions. And the approach is, if a solution is tested, designed, and built within DXC with thousands of customers and in complex infrastructure, if this works within DXC, then there's a good likelihood that similar solutions work in our customer. And so to really, this threshold has been in 90 days. The strategy is to build new solutions within 90 days, including security, etc., with AI and AI capabilities and automation, to bring the capabilities and our understanding of how to operate and what are the key factors to successfully operate infrastructure in an efficient way, to bring these two things together and enable new services within our customers. So Exponential LabX, when you search for this in the internet, there you will find description of these approaches. And that's definitely something that we are very proud of, I think.
Yeah. And if you feel that you need help with this and you want like help with this service, can you connect with your SOC? Or was because the SOC that you have is for customers as well as
I mean, there are sales representatives in the various guys. So as I said at the beginning, we are spread across the globe. We have here our Nordic teams from DXC. We have in 70 countries we are located. So the simplest way is go into the internet, search for DXC, contact in your country, and there's a good likelihood that there is a representative, and then you can call them. And DXC. So I'm from the security practice. We alone in the security practice have 60 different offerings and 60 offerings around security.
Also for small, medium businesses?
That is, I mean, you have to look that it's our main customers are large organizations, etc. That is something that is on a case-by-case basis, let's say. It needs to make sense. I mean, and it's also a cost question. So, as I said, that needs to be figured out on case-by-case situation.
Great. I have learned a lot. I think you have filled up my head with cybersecurity for a long time now. Is it anything that we have forgotten to cover?
I mean, we had what are future strategies from the cyber war kind of the house. We had containment, that you know where your input out, internet outbreaks, what are your infrastructure components, that you need to know how to block them. You need to know roles and responsibilities, the whole orchestration areas. You need to prepare upfront, having incident response plans, how the future for an incident response plans with self-adapting incident response plans. We covered the emotional phases and stress situations that you proactively need to get addressed in best case, that it's a demanding situation. We covered the AI aspects from the SOC regarding level 1 analysts, more strategic work now, faster ability to react and detect and react on these incidents. I think that's we went across the timeline of an incident, let's say. I'm pretty sure it's such a massive domain. You can easily talk a whole day on these topics.
Yeah, but there was a lot of... You could talk 2 hours just about the culture.
Exactly. So we covered a lot of different areas.
That's very good. Then I think we are going in for landing now.
Perfect.
But Lars Klinghammer, it doesn't sound, for me, it doesn't sound German. It sounds more Norwegian.
Lars, I buy that because but I don't know where I really came from. So I know that Klinghammer is a magic blacksmith. Is the explanation gewesen? Has been the explanation, but who cares, basically?
Very good. Thank you very much for enlightening us in this important topic.
Thank you very much for having me.
And good luck with your speech at the Cyber Security Forum tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Looking very much forward to it and excited to see how it works out. Thank you very much.
Takk for at du hørte på Digitaliseringspodden, levert av Computer World og Already On.